The other happening just yesterday in California. We are still gathering more details on this, and we'll bring you those details as soon as we have them. Wolf.
Horrible situation indeed. Nick Valencia, thanks for that update. And to our viewers, thanks very much for watching. I'm Wolf Blitzer in the Situation Room. Erin Burnett out front starts right now.
Out front next, a January 6th surprise. The Select Committee suddenly announcing a new hearing tomorrow, they say with new evidence and witness testimony. And we're learning the FBI seized the phone of John Eastman, the architect behind Trump's plan to overturn the election. Plus a CNN exclusive tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris warning there is more to come in the wake of the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. And we're following a developing story out of Missouri tonight, an Amtrak derailment, killing multiple people, injuring at least 50. Let's go out front. And good evening, I'm Erin Burnett. Out front tonight, new evidence. The January 6th committee abruptly scheduling a hearing for tomorrow. And it was abrupt, right? Last week, they'd said they would have no additional hearings until next month. And then suddenly, a hearing scheduled for tomorrow. And the intrigue growing tonight as the committee released only a brief statement about it, saying the hearing will include, quote, recently obtained evidence and witness testimony. This is a very sudden reversal for the committee, and it comes in an important context. We have just learned that federal agents have seized the phone of Trump's election attorney, John Eastman, a man who presented Trump a roadmap for overturning the election, someone who was right there, front and center, in Trump's ear in the days and weeks ahead of the deadly insurrection, and someone who was working the phones for Trump. So his phone is now seized. Here's just some of the testimony we've heard so far about the importance of John Eastman.
And what did Dr. Eastman want you to do?
That we would, in fact, take a vote to overthrow, or I shouldn't say overthrow, that we would decertify the electors.
What did the president say when he called you?
Essentially, he turned the call over to Mr. Eastman, who then proceeded to talk about the importance of the RNC helping the campaign gather these contingent electors.
All right, I want to begin our coverage tonight on Capitol Hill with Melanie Zanona. And Melanie, what more are you learning about this abruptly scheduled hearing? Wasn't going to happen anything until July. Now, all of a sudden, something that is so important and so new that they're going to do it tomorrow.
Right. This was a complete surprise. The Select Committee was not planning on holding hearings, as you mentioned, Erin, until mid-July. They really wanted to take the next few weeks to go through new evidence, new documentary film footage that they obtained. And Congress is also on a recess right now, which means most lawmakers are not even here in Washington. And so the Select Committee must have uncovered something that they felt was so urgent and so compelling that they decided to hold an emergency hearing to try to get this information out as soon as possible. And remember, up until this point, the Select Committee has been very careful and deliberate with how they've orchestrated these hearings. And so they would have not thrown together a last-minute hearing unless they felt like time was of the essence. Now, we do not know who the witness is for tomorrow or what testimony they're going to reveal. The committee has actually been incredibly tight-lipped about this, which is very different than how they've normally operated and is only adding to the sort of intrigue around here. But we do know that after the hearing started, tips started pouring into the Select Committee's tip line. Committee members were also using the hearings to try to implore new witnesses to come forward. So perhaps those efforts have worked, but we'll just have to wait and see till tomorrow, Erin.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty incredible. And, you know, we all heard that sort of, if you see something, say something. And maybe that did yield something. But as you point out, Melanie, and we should emphasize, so everyone watching, the committee's not out talking, right? And they usually are out, being willing to address the public, and they're not doing so ahead of this hearing. I want to go now to our justice reporter, Caitlin Polans, also in Washington. And Caitlin, the context here, right, as I said, is, you got to put it in the context of this phone, John Eastman's phone being seized. What more are you learning about that?
Right. So what we have learned is that the FBI, so that's a separate investigating body than Capitol Hill, this would be the Justice Department, is seizing the phone of John Eastman, this right-wing lawyer that was working with Donald Trump last week, the same day that there was a search also conducted by federal agents of another top lawyer close to Trump wanting to push these election lies named Jeffrey Clark. He was at the Justice Department. So what happened was this was in New Mexico. There were about 6 FBI agents that went up to John Eastman as he was exiting a restaurant after dinner, and they patted him down. They got his phone. He had his iPhone on him. They had him unlock it with his face and were able to access and obtain, seize his phone and email communications on them. So the reason we're learning about this now is because this is a search warrant that would have come through the court system. Eastman is going to court and asking a judge, please put this on hold. Don't let the Justice Department use these emails. We're learning of it from him. He's saying that he believes it's the Office of Inspector General at the Justice Department that is conducting this search. I've reached out to them, and they don't have a comment at this time. Aaron?
Caitlin, I just do want to ask you one quick follow here. Is there any significance in the fact that he was willing to unlock it? He used his face to do so. I know, you could, cell phone companies have again and again, right? And Apple have backed not sharing that information, but he did let them do it.
Well, this is something that he's contesting now. He doesn't believe that the way they approached him was proper and that they forced him to unlock it. But it is one of those things that is a tactic the FBI could use. Hold the phone in front of him, have him unlock it.
Right, right. I guess if you just hold it in front of him and it's facial recognition, you can, whether you were willing to do it or not may not matter. All right, Caitlin, thank you so much for your reporting. I want to bring in now Gloria Borger, our chief political analyst, along with Norm Eisen, who is the former counsel to House Democrats. You remember him, of course, from the first Trump impeachment trial. Norm, let's start with this moment. Eastman says half a dozen FBI agents swoop in on him as he's leaving a restaurant, seize his cell phone, gain access to his emails using facial the face unlock, which I guess there's now a question as to whether they sort of held it up without him agreeing or not. You heard Caitlin reporting there, unclear. How significant is this?
Aaron, thanks for having me back. It's very significant because what we've seen with the search warrants on Trump's outside coup lawyer, John Eastman, last week on his inside counsel who advised this coup, Jeff Clark, is the Justice Department signaling the seriousness of the case. You need to make a legal showing to get these warrants. In terms of the unlocking of the warrant, I've looked at the information, and the warrant actually provided for the phones to be unlocked. So that was pursuant to the warrant. So to me, what it signals is this was a coup, not with guns and bullets, with law books and statutes. You have two of the lawyers who are in deep trouble. That points to the client, Donald Trump.
And Gloria, to this point, right? This seizing of John Eastman's cell phone comes on the same day that the FBI raided the actual home of Jeffrey Clark, the DOJ lawyer.
What a coincidence.
Right, randomly on the same day.
Yeah.
So, you take those two data points. How close is this all getting to Trump himself?
Well, these are people who were very much in his orbit. And as Norm was pointing out, these were the people who were talking about decertifying the electors and trying to figure out a way to get around a free and fair election. And, you have to go to a judge before you can get this kind of search warrant. And you have to show some kind of probable cause that there may have been a crime committed. So I think this is pretty serious. And as we know, Donald Trump is kind of obsessed with these hearings. You can't blame him for watching these things.
Right.
And I'm sure he's not thrilled about these developments, since these two men were key in forming sort of the rationale for the coup.
No, Norm,
the would-be coup.
The hearing schedule obviously has changed multiple times, but it had been left that at the end of last week that they were having hearings in July, right? And they had put out all the requests for new information, and we knew about the Jeffrey Clark raid and all these things. It was still going to be July, after July 4th. And now all of a sudden, shocking everybody, there's a hearing tomorrow. 24 hours notice hearing tomorrow. New information's come in and witnesses are involved. What do you think is behind this sudden change?
Well, Aaron, the committee has earned a great deal of credibility. So just as they postponed one hearing, the DOJ hearing, which turned out to be a blockbuster one that pointed to the possible culpability of that other lawyer, Jeffrey Clark, now they have seemingly moved up the plans for the hearing schedule. Having tried many cases, worked on the Hill, sometimes witnesses do step forward who have dramatic new information. And you don't delay when that happens. Get them on the stand. That's always been my watchword in trying cases. So that I take them at face value. They have something explosive here.
Well, and that's the question, Gloria. You know, Norm uses the word explosive. How much is at stake if they do not deliver that?
Well, you know, obviously their credibility to a degree is at stake, although I believe they've choreographed these hearings so carefully that I can't imagine that they would call a special hearing that was a dud, that wouldn't provide new information, particularly since they'd already announced they weren't going to have any hearings anymore until July. So what I have to presume is that perhaps, given what they've seen on these 11 hours of video, perhaps our new archival information, perhaps new information that comes from a witness who may be reluctant and they want to get this witness to testify quickly. All of that put together said to them, you know what? We have to get this out now because perhaps it follows the story we heard from the Department of Justice attorneys. And they've been telling this narrative in a very deliberate way. So they want to continue with that narrative before you kind of lose the momentum of it. And that's what I'm kind of presuming. But in the end, we'll know tomorrow.
All right, both of you, thank you so much. And we will all know tomorrow. Everyone, of course, now going to be waiting and watching for that. And next, we do have some new details just coming in. There has been a deadly train derailment. It's Amtrak, and it's in Missouri. Video showing the terrifying aftermath of the train. You can see they're completely on its side, multiple cars. And we have told multiple people were killed, and at least 50 are injured. The story is developing. These numbers are developing. Plus, Vice President Kamala Harris in an exclusive interview after the fall of Roe v. Wade with our own Dana Bash, saying Justice Clarence Thomas clearly signaled the court's ultimate goal is to take away more individual rights.
I think he just said the quiet part out loud.
Referring, of course, to Justice Thomas. And an election denier barred from running elections in her own county, now running to oversee elections for the entire state.
I'm Mindy Kincaid in Atlanta, and this is CNN.
From the tiniest warbler to the mightiest whale shark, nature is on the move, but natural paths are under threat. Now meet incredible conservationists, helping species cross highways, span flyways, and get from A to B.
This is nature's highway, and we must protect it.
Call to Earth, protecting nature's highways.
Saturday on CNN. Connect the world with Becky Anderson.
It all starts here. changing, fighting, creating, connecting. That's why we're here. We live here, we work here, we're from here, and we'll go wherever the story takes us.
I'm Becky Anderson in Tehran.
We are in Jerusalem. Real news that shapes our world. Exploring not just what's going on, but why. I just want to press you on one further point. Getting perspective on this region from this region. Places that many of us know, but few of us get to see. Observing countries on the move, still rooted in tradition. It all starts here, and that's why we're here, bringing you the world from our Middle Eastern hub.
Connect the world with Becky Anderson, today on CNN.
I'm Linda Kincaid in Atlanta, and this is CNN.
Breaking news, at least 3 people are dead, dozens injured as we know it right now. The story is developing. This is because of what you see on your screen. An Amtrak train derailed. That's in the state of Missouri. Police say it happened after the train hit a dump truck. And you can see the train cars, one after another, flipped on their side. There were 243 passengers, we understand, on that train. I'll show you some video that one of them shot inside the train just moments after it tipped over.
Hang in there, hon.
Damn it. It happened.
Don't step on the glass.
You can see it's just a feel for the disarray there and the fear. Nick Valencia is out front. And so, Nick, what else do you know about what could have caused this horrific accident?
Yeah, hey there, Aaron. What a terrifying scene there earlier today, about 2 hours northeast of Kansas City. And what we know is that this fatal incident occurred at a public crossing that was uncontrolled. This, according to the Missouri Highway Patrol, meaning that there was no lights or there was no electronic arms blocking that public crossing from passenger vehicles. The Amtrak train was traveling earlier today from Los Angeles to Chicago with 243 people on board as well as 12 crew members when it struck that dump truck, which was blocking that public crossing, Aaron.
Wow, so I know we understand that there are multiple fatalities, at least many injuries so far. What else are you hearing from people who were on the train?
Yeah, at least 50 people injured right now, and at least 3 people killed as a result of that fatal accident. Other 3 people transferred to the hospital, and we're hearing just these harrowing stories of survival, including from the man who shot that video that we showed just a moment ago. We talked to him just shortly after the incident, and you could tell that he was still in shock.
I decided to take a nap before my lunch reservation, and then I heard I don't know what I heard, and then everything started to go in slow motion. I felt the ground coming, and I was afraid the windows were going to smash, so I shimmied myself up against the exit to the room, and then we slid, and then we came to a stop.
You could see from Nightingale's video there that several people were literally standing on top of those overturned train cars. One image showed a passenger, which appeared to be a passenger being extracted from one of the broken windows of the train cars. It happened in a rural area, Aaron, as you could see, really nothing around there, which is why this public crossing was uncontrolled. This is the second time in as many days that an Amtrak train has fatally collided with a passenger vehicle. And as you mentioned earlier, this is still a very active and fluid situation, and we're working on gathering more details. Aaron?
I was like, try to figure that out, as you point out, and obviously incredibly remote. Yeah. Nick, we're pointing 2 hours, outside of Kansas City, and very rural, as you can see looking at these live pictures. Nick Valencia, thank you very much. As we get more on these the developing stories and fatalities and injuries, we will keep you posted on that throughout this hour. Next, though, the Vice President Kamala Harris in an exclusive interview with our Dana Bash with this warning tonight about contraception and same-sex marriage.
You think that the Supreme Court is on a path to reverse those as well?
I definitely believe this is not over.
Plus, Ukraine's president calling it one of the most daring terrorist attacks in European history. Russia accused of striking a mall with at least 1,000 people out inside, and the death toll tonight is continuing to climb. We are in Ukraine tonight with the latest.
I'm Paulo Sandoval in Bogota, Colombia, and this is CNN.
When we decide we want to rise up and do something, when we come to connect with and care about each other and think, now I want to do something about what's happening with them and human trafficking around the world. My name is Sarah Davison Tracy. I'm an author, and I just published a book called No Longer Untouchable, a story of human trafficking, heroism, and hope. I wrote the book over the last 7 years in collaboration with 5 young women, 4 of whom were trafficked out of Nepal into India. Devi Sarahana Bhatti is one of our 5 storytellers. She has been a leader. She has been a visionary for this book, but also for her people in Nepal.
I have 1 brother and 5 sisters. One sister, she was sold out into brothels in India when she was very little. So it was very long time, my parents and we were looking for her. But there was a big challenge for us how to rescue her, how to, get her back to Nepal.
I wrote this book with the hope and the dream that these stories would elevate these young women's voices and would bring freedom to the many, many millions who are not yet free.
You can help the refugees from Ukraine. Join the over 80,000 who've already raised millions for food, shelter, and more. Explore cnn.com/impact. Click to take action.
Business is all about making connections. But some connections are easier to make than others. With a CNN partner hotel, the world is always at your fingertips. CNN partner hotels, connected to your world.
This is CNN. More people get their news from CNN than any other news source.
New tonight, a Louisiana judge temporarily blocking the state's trigger law to ban abortions after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, as states across the country move rapidly to either protect or ban the right. Even now, these are the states right now where abortion rights are guaranteed. While abortions are already banned or severely restricted in these 10 states, the ones that just lit up in orange. And abortion bans or severe restrictions appear certain or likely, going to light them up again, in the 15 states that now have lit up in brown, with Louisiana now in limbo. Well, you can see how this country dramatically changes. It comes as Vice President Kamala Harris just sat down with our own Dana Bash for her first interview since the ruling Friday, warning that she believes Americans are now in danger of losing more rights. Here's Dana's exclusive interview.
Madam Vice President, thank you so much for having me here. You were on a plane when the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. As the highest ranking woman ever elected in U.S. history, what was going through your mind at that moment?
Well, so I was on Air Force Two, heading to Aurora, Illinois, to talk about maternal health. We were with Lauren Underwood, with the chair of Judiciary, Dick Durbin, Senate Judiciary. We were headed there to unveil a plan of based on the work we've been doing to ensure that women receive the kind of support they need during and post-pregnancy. And, you know, we thought that the decision would come down sometime soon, but not at that moment. And I was shocked. And, you know, it's one thing when you know something's going to happen. It's another thing when it actually happens. And I just actually turned to CNN, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it, because they actually did it. And here's what they did. The court actually took a constitutional right that has been recognized for half a century and took it from the women of America. That's shocking when you think about it, in terms of what that means, in terms of democratic principles, in terms of the ideals upon which we were founded about liberty, about freedom. You know, I thought about it as, you know, a parent. We have 2 children who are in their 20s, a son and a daughter. I thought about it as a godparent of teenagers. I thought of it as an aunt of preschool children.
And a woman yourself.
And a woman myself. And the daughter of a woman. And a granddaughter of a woman. And, you know, my husband and I are actually talking about it. We have a 23-year-old, and my mother-in-law's in her 80s. Our daughter will not know the rights for the amount of time that my mother-in-law knew these rights, which is the right that should be well settled, that a woman should have to make decisions about her own body. And when we think about it, everyone has something at risk on this. First of all, if you are a parent of sons, do think about what this means for the life of your son and what that will mean in terms of the choices he will have. Do think about it in the context of the fact that they wrote this decision, including, you know, concurring opinions, that suggest that other rights, such as the freedom to make decisions about when you were going to start a family, the freedom and the right to make decisions about contraception, IUDs, what this is going to mean in terms of in vitro fertilization.
Well, let me ask you about that, because Justice Thomas, this is what you're referring to, did write a concurring opinion saying the court should reconsider other cases of precedent that protect same-sex marriage, contraception, intimacy, and more. Do you think that the Supreme Court is on a path to reverse those as well?
I definitely believe this is not over. I do. I think he just said the quiet part out loud. And I think that is why we all must really understand the significance of what just happened. This is profound. And the way that this decision has come down has been so driven, I think, by the politics of the issue versus what should be the values that we place on freedom and liberty in our country, right? The right to privacy. Let's think of this in the context of the laws that are being passed in states. Dana, in 13 states, by my count, they will not allow a woman to have access to reproductive health and to an abortion if she is the victim of rape or incest. So let me tell you something. As a former prosecutor who specialized in crimes of violence against women and girls, in particular child sexual assault and rape, the idea that after a woman has endured such violence to her body, that she would not have the freedom and authority to decide whether she wanted to continue with a pregnancy that is a result of an act of violence is absolutely unthinkable.
So because you are now the Vice President of the United States, part of an administration that is pledging to fight back, to find ways to protect women's rights to abortion, I want to ask you some of the things that are kind of out there that some of your former female senators, Senate colleagues are asking the administration to do. will the administration actively challenge state laws that make it a crime for someone to help a woman travel to another state for an abortion?
So the president rightly last week, when the decision came down, indicated quite unambiguously that we will do everything within our power as an administration through the executive branch to ensure that women have access to the medication they need, which has been, by the way, FDA approved, and that they will have freedom of travel and that travel should be unrestricted.
And you're going to do that through the courts if need be?
I am sure that our Department of Justice is going to do that based on every statement that the Attorney General has made.
Can the administration expand abortion access or abortion services on federal land, meaning provide the access on federal land that might be in and around states that ban abortion?
I think that what is most important right now is that we ensure that the restrictions that the states are trying to put up that would prohibit a woman from exercising what we still maintain is her right, that we do everything we can to empower women to not only seek but to receive the care where it is available.
Is federal land one of those options?
I mean, it's not right now what we are discussing, but I will say that when I think about what is happening in terms of the states, we have to also recognize, Dana, that we are 130 odd days away from an election, which is going to include Senate races, right? Part of the issue here is that the court has acted, now Congress needs to act. But if you count the votes, don't appear to have the votes in the Senate. Well, there's an election happening in 130 odd days. I'm taking, for example, thinking of a Senate race in Georgia or North Carolina. There's the Senate race coming up just in a couple weeks in Colorado. And we need to change the balance and have pro-choice legislators who have the power to make decisions about whether this constitutional right will be in law, right? We say codified, put it in law so that there will be no ambiguity about it.
And I want to ask you about that in 1 second. Okay. Just a couple of more questions, because what I'm hearing, and you probably are too, is what can this Democratic administration do right now with any executive power that the president has? Yeah. Can the administration actually increase access to medication abortion?
I think we're pretty clear that to the extent that we can, we will. There's no question about that, because again, it is FDA approved, and if it is prescribed, that a woman should be able to have access to it unfettered.
And what about the idea of financial resources? Some form of voucher for travel, child care services, other forms of support for people, for women seeking abortions in states where it's not legal, but they just don't have the means to go elsewhere.
I think you're asking a very important point, making a very important point, which is what are the details that are going to go into ensuring that women have the ability to actually travel without impairment. And we know that on this issue, women who have access to resources will probably be far less impacted by this decision than women who don't have resources. So this is something that we are looking at, because we know, for example, in terms of how this is going to actually impact real people, over half of women who receive abortions in America are moms. That means that if they're going to have to travel, they've got to find daycare and pay for it. It means that they will, if they are working, which most are, they're going to have time from work, and if they don't have paid leave, they're going to have to figure out how to afford it. It means that they may have to put up money for a train or a bus or a plane, much less a hotel, and so we want to make sure that there does not result extreme disparities or any disparities based on who can receive care based on how much money they've got.
The details here are so crucial. Dana, as you break them down with the vice president, I know she had some very harsh words. Obviously, she mentioned Justice Thomas there to you, but also about Supreme Court Justices Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. What did she say to you about them?
She was a United States Senator when both of them were confirmed. And she wasn't on the Judiciary Committee for Gorsuch, but she was for Brett Kavanaugh during his confirmation hearing, where he talked about Roe and called it precedent on precedent. And some of her former colleagues, senators, have said that they think that the two of them just flat out lied during their confirmation hearing in order to get their votes. Her answer, she voted no on both of those, was, I never believed them. I didn't believe them. That's why I voted against them.
Oh, very, very interesting. All right, Dana, thank you so much.
Thanks,
and of course,
Erin.
throughout the evening, we'll hear more from Dana's exclusive interview with the vice president. Thanks again to Dana. And next, Illinois. When you hear the vice president talk about people coming across state lines, well, Illinois is now bracing for tens of thousands of women to flood to the state for abortion. Illinois' governor is my guest, plus election deniers, including one who's banned from overseeing contests in her own county, totally banned her own county, now running to take over some of Colorado's top offices.
Today, we live in an unpredictable environment, and news races around the world at breakneck speed.
The missile struck right here. What is your interpretation of Putin's intention?
My show brings you the latest news and top news makers.
What does President Putin think he has achieved in Ukraine to date?
We just want to say stop to Vladimir Putin.
And we also dive below the headlines to explore vital issues impacting our lives.
What are you looking at for the future with these additional formations that you've talked about, and where? What are the UN and other countries doing for you? Is it enough?
It's crucial we make sense of what's happening.
We are doing this for our very survival.
What do you think a peace or a ceasefire or an end to this looks like?
And fully understand what's at stake.
We have will, we have guts, and we are fighting like hell.
Amanpour, tonight on CNN.
To open doors, to develop contacts, and to unlock secrets, it takes trust.
It was the first time he really came out of his shell in front of a camera.
Trust that you'll listen.
It's so great that you're here today. It just highlights what's making a difference.
That you'll be honest. I don't want to pry, but what sort of conversations do you have with them? Trust that you'll be accurate and you'll be fair. It was an unprecedented move, very eerie. All the roads have been closed off. Describe the theme that you arrived to. The Apache attack helicopter. This is what Captain Wales has been flying. Do you want talks with them?
What is the point of talking now?
Huge amount of police support coming into this protest. We continue to monitor the government in crisis. This was the Duchess's first news interview. Rare access indeed. That's what it's all about. Max Foster, CNN.
Interviewed 5 U.S. presidents, authored 7 books, and has an independent voice that resonates.
What happened to when we were united against a common enemy?
He's raw, unique, and one of America's most important talk show hosts. Watch Smirconish, Saturday on CNN.
I'm Blake Essig in Tokyo, and this is CNN.
Tonight, amid the abortion rights confusion across the country, one governor is opening the door for abortion access to women from out of state, saying he expects up to 30,000 women to come to his state for an abortion. It's the state of Illinois, and it is surrounded by a whole lot of states that are in limbo or may outright ban the procedure. The Democratic governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, joins me now. And Governor, I appreciate your time tonight. Are you already seeing women traveling to your state from other states, neighboring or otherwise, where all of a sudden abortion is banned or seemingly close to being banned, coming to Illinois for abortions?
We are, over the last year, more than 10,000 from neighboring states. You probably already know, and you showed a map of it. Abortion has been severely restricted, now banned in every state around us. There's one on its way to banning it entirely. And so we've already seen many, many women coming here to exercise their reproductive rights.
So Republicans say, Governor, as you know, that the issue should be left to voters in the states, right? That they're not banning abortion, they're giving the states the right to ban abortion. And in your state, nothing will change because that's what the voters in your state want. That's what you're going to do. If they don't like what you're doing, they could vote you out and put in a governor who feels very differently. So how do you think about this intellectually? As a governor, why shouldn't your fellow governors and state legislatures set the laws in their states the way you do in yours?
Because we don't vote on fundamental rights, fundamental constitutional rights. The right to privacy as it was established is something that every American has, just like they do the freedom of speech and the freedom of the press. You know, it's important for us at the state level to protect our people from encroachment of the federal government, but this is a fundamental right. Everybody should have it. I've been fighting for this for my entire life. Really, my mother had me marching with her in the 1970s on behalf of women's reproductive rights and LGBTQ rights and so on. And now here we are. First time in my lifetime that a right has been taken away from people. We've always expanded rights. Now they're contracting.
So, you know, of course, obviously the right, when you talk about privacy, right, it's not technically in the Constitution. The court established it in Roe, right, and then upheld it via precedent. But do you have frustration now that the Congress failed for 40 years to codify it in federal law, to follow up? There was never an amendment. There was never anything, even though it was clear that there were people, powerful parties who were going to be trying to do this to Roe the second they could?
Well, Brown v. Board of Education isn't something that we had to codify. The Supreme Court, ruled on it, and I don't think any of us expect that it will be reversed. Well, now it feels like anything can be reversed. So am I disappointed that Congress hasn't been able to do it? Look, I think it makes it more important than ever now in 2022 that we elect pro-choice people to the United States Congress, and those are going to be Democrats. Of course, we also have to make sure, as you pointed out, in every state we're electing Democratic governors and Democratic legislatures because it's the only way that we're going to be able to protect women's rights.
I also want to ask you about something else that's obviously very important for your state, and that is revenue, obviously, in the context of providing a safe haven for abortion for people from other states. That's relevant, and it's relevant for your state overall, Governor. The hedge fund Citadel and the trading firm Citadel Securities are leaving, they say, to Miami after more than 30 years in Chicago. The head of Citadel, I do want to note, Ken Griffin, is backing a Republican challenging you for governor. But it's not just Citadel. They say they're leaving because of high taxes and high crime. Caterpillar, which has been a stalwart of your state, leaving Illinois for Texas. Boeing, I remember the day covering it as a business reporter when they moved from Seattle to Chicago. What a coup that was for your state. They're now leaving for Virginia. Do you have a problem in Illinois?
Well, let me just point out that, first of all, I fight for every job in the state and, of course, to attract headquarters and companies to put their factories and facilities in our state. In fact, you may have read in the last 2 weeks that Kellogg's is moving the main portion of their business to Chicago. So we have a lot of comings and goings. The same thing is true of population. Our population grew. Our jobs are growing in the state. And yeah, I don't like to see any company headquarters get up and leave. But just to give one example, Caterpillar has 17,400 jobs in our state. Still, 240 are leaving. 17,400 are staying, and hundreds have been added in the last year here. Boeing, same thing. They had their office, relatively small, leave, but they added 350 jobs downstate building defense-related products of theirs. So I don't like anybody leaving. I also would point out that that the head of Citadel had political reasons that he wanted to leave. You mentioned that. And he's been threatening to do that for some time. Look, I believe in Illinois as a place for business, and we're open for business here and attracting many, many more jobs. So I'm pleased about that. And then many small businesses. We have the largest growth of small businesses per capita of any of the large states. So I hope everybody knows we're open for business in Illinois.
All right, Governor Pritzker, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next, voters about to go to the polls in Colorado, where one Republican conspiracy theorist who is actually charged with trying to breach voting machines is now running to control the entire state elections. And tonight, President Biden condemning a strike on a shopping mall in Ukraine. The death toll rising there as crews are now scrambling to locate survivors.
COVID was something from the movies. Asia was much more draconian with it. And so, we hardly did any flying for 2 years. So imagine an airline with 21,000 staff, 250 aircraft at that time. It's a nightmare scenario, but I think the worst is over now. And it's given us a chance to do things we probably couldn't have done before. COVID, one of the benefits was enabling me to pivot the ship and start looking at our data and our brand in a different way. The internet has made pricing transparent, so anyone is not going to come directly to AirAsia. They're going to search around, Google Travel, whatever. So I said to our team, let's be a travel agent. So separated the company, created the super app, and I'm aiming to be Expedia.
There is a kind of dichotomy between the real economy that we are witnessing, be it on the consumer behavior or the optimism of the CEOs or the board, and on the other hand, there is the stock market, which is in a free fall, at least for the tech companies, and also the noise that we are hearing regarding either recession which is coming or inflation which is going up. And there is this situation which is a little bit strange because there is no convergence between what we are hearing and what we are seeing in the market.
Across Africa, businesses are working together like never before. All new on CNN, Connecting Africa.
Join me, Eleni Jokas, as we crisscross the continent to show you how new connections are revolutionizing commerce in Africa.
This month, Connecting Africa from the Africa CEO Forum here in Côte d'Ivoire.
This forum really brings Africans together.
Connecting Africa on CNN, in association with Afreximbank.
This is a really important story. My name's Clarissa Ward. I work for CNN.
Assalamu alaikum.
Day in, day out, you see the reality of people living through this.
Ничего страшного.
Okay.
This is the front line.
On a human level, you find courage, sacrifice. This is what life is about.
A lot of people are wondering why.
You see the worst of humanity.
Putin might use a nuclear weapon. Absolutely terrifying.
But you also see the best of humanity. My job is to be present.
The human cost is right here.
And to tell these stories.
We're talking about families.
That is the most important thing.
I'm Clarissa Ward in Ukraine.
This
is
CNN.
Voters are heading to the polls in Colorado tomorrow. Multiple election deniers are on the ballot there, vying for major positions. This is really important, and one of them is trying to administer the state's next presidential election, despite, okay, get ready for this, being barred from conducting her duties as a county elections chief after being indicted for allegedly tampering with state voting machines. Kyung Wha is out front.
Through the doors of this Grand Junction, Colorado hotel, with just hours left before the primary, a crowd of activists gathered for what amounted to an election conspiracy forum hosted by MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell, featuring 2020 election denier and Republican Colorado Secretary of State candidate Tina Peters.
Well, if they don't cheat, I'm in.
Peters is not just a headliner here. She's made headlines across Colorado for the last year.
Let go of me! Do not resist.
This is Peters in February, one part of a long saga of investigations she's faced with. A grand jury indicted Peters on multiple felony counts stemming from an election security breach at her Mesa County clerk's office. She's pleaded not guilty. As part of the investigation, confidential forensic images of voting machine hard drives and logins appeared on a QAnon-affiliated Telegram channel. She's now barred from overseeing the county's elections this year. Instead,
I'm running to be your Secretary of State to make that happen.
She's on Tuesday's ballot, running to oversee elections in the whole state.
And I'm not an election conspiracy theorist. When people came to me, and I listened to the people. That's how I got involved.
What do you say to critics, like your opponents, who say that you're just simply raising lies?
Oh, I like that one. Well, I want to run on being accurate, transparent, and a voice for the people.
Also on the far-right Republican ticket, State Representative Ron Hanks running for the U.S. Senate. A 2020 election denier, Hanks on his campaign website proudly shares this image of himself in Washington on January 6th. In his campaign video, he wheels out a copier with the words Dominion voting machine, a widespread conspiracy lie that the machines were rigged against Donald Trump.
I'm Ron Hanks, and I approve this message.
What happens if Republicans do nominate these candidates?
You can kiss this election goodbye.
Election liars can't win in November in blue-leaning Colorado, says former state Republican Chairman Dick Wadhams. That's why Republicans are now seeing this.
How conservative is Ron Hanks?
Millions of advertising dollars boosting Ron Hanks' conservative credentials, paid for by the Democrats.
Democratic Colorado is responsible for the content of this advertising.
The Democrats spending this much money to nominate the weakest candidates is smart. I mean, I think it's unethical, but I think it's smart. And frankly, it has moved voters.
They've dumped so much money into this.
Republican Senate candidate Joe O'Dea, a businessman and supporter of abortion rights, is not just fighting Democrats boosting his competitor, but also millions to tear him down. He can't even get through a campaign event at a restaurant.
Yep, there's my commercial there.
Without a negative ad running in the background.
Why are they targeting you with so much cash?
They know I can win. And they're going to have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to beat me in November, so they're trying to get me off the ballot right now. They're looking for somebody who can't win here in November. He's focused on an election that was stolen, and he's focused on things that don't matter to working Americans right now.
And Kyung, it's amazing. So he's tripling down. But, you know, the former GOP chairman, I thought was very interesting when he told you what Democrats are doing is unethical but smart. What do Democrats say in response?
Well, the Democrats, in short, say, so what? What they're doing is not illegal. We reached out directly to the super PAC that is funding this effort, Democratic Colorado. And here's a statement that we got from the spokeswoman. She says, quote, "We are an organization committed to ensuring that Colorado doesn't elect a Republican to the U.S. Senate. Both GOP candidates are totally out of step with our values, and voters deserve to know the truth about who's running to represent them." But of course, Aaron, if you talk to the Republicans actually running in the Republican primary, they just simply call it meddling. Aaron?
Of course, a word we're now all familiar with. Kyung Wha, thank you very much. And next, a desperate search for survivors in Ukraine after a strike on a crowded mall. At least 15 are dead, many more are injured, and these numbers very fluid, still moving. The latest next.
I'm Hadas Gold in Jerusalem, and this is CNN.